Rock and roll rules, dude.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Rock and Roll Tales from the Lady in Black. I'm your host, Lana Taramai. I started this YouTube channel because I wanted a platform to promote the music I love, more specifically rock and roll music. I'm not talking about the greatest hits of AC/DC and Bon Jovi. I'm talking about Def Leppard deep cuts, Richardson Bora soul albums, and new rock bands like Rival Sons and Black Stone Cherry. That sounds like something you're interested in, feel free to give this video a like and smash that subscribe button for more content like this. With all that said, let's get on with the music. So, Def Leppard are my favorite band of all time. And this year, their album Slang turns 30 years old. It was released on May 13, 1996 as a response to the grunge era, which was exploding in the early 90s. So, this change actually began with this album, Retroactive, which was released in 1983. So, at the time, Def Leppard were influenced by the music that was surrounding them. You know, bands like Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and Nirvana, of course. And they wanted to change things up. So, they made the production of this album heavier than what they were used to. It wasn't as heavy, but if you listen, it wasn't as heavy as Slang, but if you listen to songs like Fractured Love and Desert Song, then you would know what I'm talking about. So, besides wanting to go in a heavier direction, they just wanted to test this out to see how the fans would react. And then once they felt confident enough to pursue that new direction, they started working on Slang. And you gotta remember, even before Slang came out, they already experienced a lot as a band. They fired Pete Willis because of his drinking habits. Rick Allen got into a car crash and lost his left arm. And then, most recently at the time, Steve Clark died of a mixture of alcohol and prescription drugs. Those were not happy times for the band, and yet they were still singing Rock of Ages, Pour Some Sugar on Me, and Let's Get Rocked. So, they were kind of stuck in autopilot in a way. So basically, what they did with Slang, they decided to be more honest with themselves about how they were feeling and what direction they wanted to go into. So, that's why they decided to write Slang. And, of course, at the time, that jokingly, the album was going to be called Commercial Suicide. And in a sense it was the first Def Leppard record not to achieve platinum status in the US. But time has shown that Slang, there you go, finally showed the album cover, it's actually held up really well. And what I love about this record is how honest and real it is. And it was heavy. If you listen to Gift of Flesh, sounds like Gift of Flesh sounds like something like the underground punk rock scene would be really proud of. And then you got Pearl of Euphoria, which is about abortion. It's heavy, but it also has those melodic aspects that made Def Leppard famous in the first place. And my favorite song on the record is the second to the last song, Where Does Love Go When It Dies? It's one of the most beautiful ballads I've ever heard from Def Leppard. In fact, I think they should really bring that song back to the live repertoire. Hey Def Leppard, if you're watching, please play this on your Las Vegas residency in 2026, February 2026. I'm begging you, please bring that song back to your live repertoire. But, and a lot of fans nowadays, they say that Def Leppard, they're not as good as they were when Steve Clark died. Basically, when Steve Clark died, things really changed for the band, their sound, and that a lot of people say that they went into a more pop direction, which in a way it's true, but there's still some great stuff in their catalog, including Slang. And in a way, personally, I think that Slang was their first official record that Def Leppard did without Steve Clark, because yeah, Adrenalize was released and recorded without Steve Clark, but he co-wrote a good chunk of these songs, and he co-wrote a good chunk of these songs. So Slang was the first record that Def Leppard did without Steve. Well, and these songs co-written by him, and this was their grown-up album for Def Leppard, basically. So that's why this record is so important. I think it's the most important record Def Leppard ever did, because it showed that they weren't afraid to take risks. They were willing to be honest with themselves and the music that they wanted to make. I mean, you gotta remember, those were not happy times for the band. Even after Steve Clark's death, Sav's father, bassist Rick Savage's father, died, and then Joe Elliott and Phil Collins were going through divorces. So they took all that frustration and anger and sadness that they were going through, and they channeled it into this record. And it was amazing. And then, not just that, even the bonus tracks. So, I got into Def Leppard during a weird time. It's like 2018, 2019, during my sophomore, junior year of college. And those were the best times of my life, because I felt like an adult for once, just walking around college campus all by myself, going to my classes by myself. And then I was in a college club called the Disney Ohana Club, and I had friends and I had plans. I had a social life, basically. And listening to Def Leppard takes me back to a really happy place for me. And especially this record, because before I even started collecting albums, I listened to this album through Spotify, and it had the deluxe edition, because for some reason I couldn't find the regular version of this album on Spotify. And then that's how I discovered the bonus tracks Move With Me Slowly and Worlds Collide, that is a really great song. In fact, if Def Leppard were to play that live, I would go bonkers. That's just one of the heaviest things they've ever done, besides Gift of Flesh. Really great riff, and really cool guitar solo. You don't hear those often. And then Move With Me Slowly, it's just a really good overall blues track. And Phil Collins' backing vocals are amazing. But also, another highlight of the album is Blood Runs Cold, which is the more darker and grim version of a tribute to Steve Clark. And the lyrics are really great. In fact, I would get some of the lyrics tattooed on me, but my parents won't let me. They were already mad at me that I already got 2 tattoos without their permission. But Blood Runs Cold, yeah, that's another standout. And I get that Def Leppard, they have to play the hits, but I think the fans would be really happy if they were to play more songs from this record live, just so that it shows that they're not ashamed of what they did past the Steve Clark era. That's what it kind of feels like. It feels like their best albums were, in their opinion, Hysteria and Pyromania. But don't forget about the albums that they did after him. They shouldn't forget that, because it's part of their history. And there's some good stuff on there. So yeah, that's why I think Slang is the most important record Def Leppard ever did. You can say Hysteria, but Slang was the first record, in my opinion, that Def Leppard, they said, we don't care what anybody else thinks. We're gonna do the music that we want to make. And it's gonna be as heavy as we can get. And it's gonna be as real as we can get. And it's gonna be as honest as we can get. And I thought it's funny because they released a song today on January 22nd as I'm filming this. They released a song called Rejoice, and there are some heavy elements in there that remind me of the Slang era, but they also remind me of the 2015 self-titled 2015 Def Leppard album. But I think if they were to stick in that route, combined with the pop melodies that they're known for, and they include some of the heaviness from this record, you got yourself a banging band. So, there you go. That's why I think Slang is the most important record Def Leppard ever did. So, if you like this video, again, give this video a like and smash that subscribe button for more content like this. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Def Leppard Slang. So, take care, see you real soon, peace!